I did. We're doing something a little bit different here today. I'm here with Chris Huet, and we got a little bit of a story to tell. Well, in fact, I don't even know what the story is we're going to tell. This is completely unrehearsed, it's unscripted. I know we're just here for the next hour or so. Chris is a former fighter pilot, and he ended up being a poet. And in a former life, I was an army sniper and I ended up being a magician. Now, it does not take a genius to see those two on a page and go, there's got to be a bit of a discussion there. There's got to be maybe something that we can share and maybe something you can learn from this. So, this is actually all about you. So if you do have questions, pop them in the chat. And I have been working on this system to hopefully be able to get your comments coming in from LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube, wherever you happen to be. So put them in and we'll try to monitor them. And if you've got questions, you can ask us anything. Really, what I'm going to focus this event around today is all about you. We're living in a video and a virtual and a V-mail. Yeah, not email, but V-mail world. We're going into V-mail, which means that we're all going to have to be on camera. We're going to have to be presenting. Now, for a lot of people, that freaks you out. I get that, because you know what? Most of my life, it freaked me out too, which is why I got Chris here. Actually, Chris, hello. I've just ignored you over in the corner. You're standing there like the spare one. Hello, say hello.
Hi, Julian. It's great to be with you today, and it's great also to talk to anybody who joins us now or in the future if they watch a recording of this.
Yeah, and I'm just seeing, hey, Eva over there in, I think Eva's Singapore. Welcome. Hopefully, throw in a question. We'd love to hear from you. But this is about, so if you're going to be on video, if you're going to be presenting, and we are, and let's just take that if away. There is no if about this. We are all going to end up presenting. When presenting, it's just talking to someone. Instead of sending an email, you'll send a V-mail. But it means you have to be able to present. And you have to communicate, and you're going to be a far better communicator if you can get out of your head where you're thinking about yourself the whole time. And believe me, I was in that space for so long, and I've sort of elevated myself out of it now. I'm pretty much fully self-expressed. You honestly have no idea how I am not thinking about myself in any of the stuff that I do now. And that's quite liberating, because it enables you just to be in the moment and to hopefully listen a bit better and get your message out a little bit better, because you're not taking up bandwidth in your head. Now, I was never like that, and I don't know Chris's story. Maybe Chris was the fighter pilot up there who was always thinking ahead, that he was always going to be out, standing in front of the camera like this. I don't know. So Chris, I want to know about you, because I know about me. Were you always somebody, who were you then and who are you now? And how are you different between those two states? Hey, Chris, just check your audio, mate. I'm not hearing you here.
Yeah, sorry, Julian. I muted when I was listening to Facebook, and then I had to turn Facebook off. I apologise.
Okay, we're back with you. Launch off now. Take off.
Yeah. Yes, your question is an excellent one, and often it's difficult for us to look back into the past and remember what we were like. But I know that as a youngster, I always wanted to be in the Air Force. I always wanted to be a pilot. My dad was in the Air Force. He wasn't a pilot, he was an education officer, but I had seen a lot of the Air Force and I wanted to join. And when I had the fortune to be able to follow that path and become a pilot and become a fighter pilot, the things that really have stayed with me from then is the drive to be your best, the way we would actually self-critique and also critique each other. Debriefing after we'd been on a flying mission was a big part of our job, so we had to always improve ourselves, and having that sort of dedication to self-work is one of the things that stuck with me now. So that individual drive and that drive to continually get better is something I think helps me now in the work that I do and everything I've done since I was in the Air Force. I don't know that I always wanted to be on a stage or perform, but definitely being an officer in the Air Force developed my ability to stand up and present in front of people, and definitely in a certain style. So that sort of briefing style, that very formal style. So I got comfortable with doing that. Since then, I've learned to be a human being a little bit more, I think, and actually consider more all the different ways that we communicate and we operate in this world, and how to connect and reach people from different perspectives. So that's the stuff that I really have had to learn since then, I think.
Oh, you are obviously way more self-aware than I was when I was back being an Army sniper, because I didn't go through that officer training, and I wasn't taught those communication skills. And in fact, my mindset, I mean, the whole reason I was a sniper, to be honest, was it enabled me to hide. I could, work by myself and go away and engage in all these antisocial behaviors and not actually have to talk to anyone. And to me, that was a joy. I was not a confident person, and I have no problems if you fully talked about this in my book called The Second Best Job in the World, where when I had a lot of self-esteem problems growing up. And it just seemed to me that if you being behind the scope was actually enabled me to hide behind something. And that's actually the connection between being a documentary cameraman for a couple of decades and being an Army sniper. There were two connections. One, I was looking through lenses, so there was that. But the other thing was it also gave me something to hide behind. Because the great thing about being on camera was that you could be in situations, and if I just didn't want to talk to someone, or I just felt insecure, you could literally bury yourself in the lens, and it was like putting a big sign up, silent, I do not disturb, professional at work. And really that became a comfort crutch. So more the longer I did it, I just realized, yeah, I don't have to talk to anyone. I don't have to have uncomfortable conversations. I can just look busy. And of course, I mean, over time that did change, but for a long period of time, that hiding behind the technology, which I think is a particularly male thing. Did you find that in the Air Force at all? That mastery of technology was a good way that you could lose yourself in that and not have to worry about this other more being vulnerable, because to do what you're doing now in poet and speaking, and this requires vulnerability, and once you're willing to put yourself out there, things do change. So do you have any ideas about that?
Yeah, I think that in the work that I did, I was working with a lot of people who are very similar to me. We fighter pilots have a lot of similarities. The focus on getting better and being the best you can and holding each other up to a very high standard. I think there was an element of vulnerability in that, in terms of you had to take the hits. If you messed up, you fessed up and you were honest and you took it on to fix that and work on it. That said, there was definitely a technical aspect to it, and understanding the tactical environment, I guess, how you can be a better fighter pilot, and understanding also your aircraft and the systems you use and the systems potential enemies might use. There was definitely a part of that, but you couldn't really bury yourself in that. You still had to work as part of a team and continue to help each other to do that improvement. So I don't know if it had the same aspect. The one part that I was interested in your experience, Julian, is that being a sniper is obviously a solitary task, and now you are what might be called a solopreneur, or you have been for quite a while. Have you always had a strong self-reliance? Have you always liked working by yourself, or do you prefer working in teams? And how have you seen that in your career since being in the army?
I've been many things in my 59 years, Chris, and a team player is not one of them. I got to tell
Right.
you. Uh, so yeah, to my own detriment, I have to learn to rely more on other people, and it's really interesting because this was actually explained to me in my sniping days. So there was a thing in sniping where you if you watch movies and you see this, there's a sniper up there and they put their weapon down on a brick wall and they get a steady shot. Well, most of the time, there's never a brick wall there. What you have to be able to do is get a steady shot just from standing, sitting, leaning, lying in the prone position. And your rifle has a sling on it. And you wrap the sling around your arm in this configuration where when you push your arm, you put the butt of the rifle in your shoulder and rest the stock of the rifle across your palm with the sling wrapped around. When you push your forearm away, it tightens and pulls the butt back into your shoulder. And this becomes this rock steady platform. Wherever you move, literally the rifle points in that direction. But with every benefit, there's a downside to it. And the downside of that was the tighter you pushed out against it, it meant the sling wrapped around your forearm tighter like a tourniquet. And you would get your pulse starting to beat. And when you were looking through the crosshairs, particularly at long distances, you would see the crosshairs jump with every heartbeat. And it'd be boom, 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 boom. And it was really off-putting. So that's actually why you're more effective if you're sniping in teams, in a pair of two, because you have somebody next to you, the spotter, who has a pair of binoculars, which in a sense is the wider view, and they help give you perspective, because when you're looking through that narrow scope, which is just a really narrow view of the world, literally molehills become mountains, and that little bump from the pulse, it just puts you off, and you need somebody there to give you perspective. And so you think I would have learnt from this, but I have a trouble not relying on myself. And I think my journey to wherever that is going would have been faster if I had allowed myself to get a lot more outside help in.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'm very. I don't know which came first. I don't know if this is a trait that I had that helps me be a fighter pilot, because you have to do a lot of work and a lot of it's by yourself to get to that place, or being a fighter pilot helped me develop that self-reliance. But I definitely like working by myself. I like taking on the responsibility. I like doing the work myself. I don't always reach out to others, but having a small business now, some of the most rewarding times that I've had in my own business has been when I've connected with someone else or done something like this. But you reached out to me and said, let's have this discussion. And that's where you actually, the sum of the parts is bigger than the whole is bigger than the sum of the parts, those sorts of things. So I often have to remind myself that maybe you can go and talk to someone about that problem, or get someone in, pay someone in to do that work, and it'll be much better outcome.
So I've noticed on your LinkedIn posts, and that is that your language is very inclusive. Your language is far more that of a facilitator rather than a speaker. Whereas I think I'm more in speaker mode, which is tell mode. Like I'm happy to get in front of people and tell them stories, and in a sense be more prescriptive.
Mm-hmm.
Do A, B, C, and you put the effort in, you'll get that. But you are far more in listening mode, in that facilitator mode. Is that something that you've always been like, or is it a learned process?
A little bit of both, I think. I was in the Air Training Corps, which is now called the Air Force Cadets. I don't know if you went through a similar thing when you were at school, but 13 years old, 14 years old, and did a course to become a corporal, a cadet corporal. And I used to go out with the other cadets who would have been 12-year-old boys, sort of thing. And someone commented to me that they noticed that when I got them to do things while we're out bivouacking, we called it, in the bush, I would ask people to do something. I never gave orders. I never told them, although in theory, because I was a corporal, I could order people to do things, cadets to do things. And I guess I've always had that approach. I've always much preferred to ask people to do things rather than be directive. And that's something that's definitely developed in the work that I do now, because a lot of the time I'm talking to people about how they can better understand others before they then try and transmit their message to them. So a lot of that is listening, asking questions, being aware of how the person is reacting to things you're saying and changing the way you speak. So I guess that's a big part of my work, but it's also part of my personality, which has led me to this work too, I think.
Yeah, look, I'm a lot later coming to this leadership idea. And leadership, I mean, that's a very ethereal, big word. But and again, because my whole life was never thinking that I was a leader at all. It was never a concept I had. It was never something I was chasing. It was never something I understood. But strange things started to happen, and it happened as I advanced in my TV career. I was very focused about achieving the goals that I'd set for myself, and I literally put my nose down, and I would go nose down for years. And then when occasionally I'd come up for air to have a little bit of a look around, people would start asking me, how are you doing this? What did you do to achieve that? We've been watching you do this. And it was odd. I was going, why are you looking at me? And it was almost, I stumbled into this idea that, see, to me, leadership is you know when you're leading, when you look over your shoulder and you see people following. And and I went, and it was a slow process. And then when I left television is where it all started to ramp up. Where I left TV and took a program out in the world to teach philanthropy to school children. That was a screaming commercial failure, and so my TV career had sailed off into the distance, and then I had to reinvent myself. And so I had some magic skills, so I built upon those and became the professional magician, which was okay, but wasn't satisfying me. So that's when I took the magic online, and that's when I started to build a magic community around me, which actually leads to an interesting point, because the reason I was successful in online magic not was that I was a good magician. I'm just a really average magician. The the reason I was successful is I had an outsider's point of view. I came into this whole industry with a completely fresh set of eyes, and I was just able to look at what they were doing. And there were certain things I saw just based upon my own unique life experiences, which I went, really? Do you know, I reckon there's a better way to do that. And because I didn't have that level of status and concern, like I hadn't been trying to climb the greasy pole or up the ladder, and I wasn't really, I had nothing to lose, so I would say this. And that enabled me to have a platform, and people went, oh, a different point of view, that's interesting. So I actually think that's really valuable for people to understand, that if you're going out there into new areas or trying something new, it's actually a lot of the times a real a benefit in your favor is that you are a fresh set of eyes.
Yes, I agree. But what did you learn from being a magician, from your performance side that you are using now in the work that you do?
Oh, huge. So number one thing, when I start, so I was terrified. You got no idea how terrified I was when I first started doing magic. So this is my first magic show, right? It was here in this house that I'm in when my daughter was 4 years old, having her 4th birthday party. And we ended up doing a magic show because somewhere I'd spoken to my wife, Vicky, like in the distant past, and said, as a kid, I did magic tricks for a while, as probably most boys did or something. My wife has got a memory like a steel trap. And so when we were talking about doing stuff at the kid's birthday party, she said to me, "Oh, why don't you do a magic show?" And I said, "Don't be silly." She said, "I think that would be a good idea." And I went, "Oh, right." So I basically put together, I went to the library and got these books out and put together a show. And I remember standing in the side room and my friend introduced me. Now, this was to 4-year-olds. And when he said, "Everyone, please welcome the amazing Julian," I remember the blood rushing up from my body into my temples and banging so loud. It was deafening. I was terrified. So that was my first magic experience. And for a lot of my early years doing it, I was actually scared of audiences. I thought audiences were hostile, that they were like wolves circling a lame deer and ready to take you down. And so the first thing I learned is that you cannot have a lame deer mentality out there. You've got to get rid of that, because that transmits. If you got unsure about anything, the audience sniffs it out really, really quickly, and they don't want that. Now, here's why they don't want that. Because audiences, when they come into a situation where you're performing or listening or you're talking, or when you're on a webinar, whatever, audiences all their life are human. And what do we have to do all through the day? We have to think, and it's tiring. And what an audience really wants, okay, they want some information or transformation, they want some value, but equal to that, they don't want to have to think for the next 10, 20, or 30 minutes. And if you can tell the audience early on, listen, hey, you're in a safe pair of hands here, I got you, it'll be okay, they love it and they give themselves over to you. Because they go, fantastic, you telling me you're going to direct me for the next, however long, and I don't have to think. You go for it, champ, I'm in. Because as soon as they do leave, they have to go back to real life and thinking. So understanding that audiences are not hostile. And then the next thing I learned was that if you make a mistake, you've got to get over this idea that other people are talking about the mistakes you make, because the reality is you're not that important. And for years I was all hung up, oh God, if I do this, they're going to they're going to talk about me when they leave, and they'll be going, oh, that guy, remember him, he messed up. The reality is, as soon as they walk out the door, important things in their life take over, like they have to pick the kids up from school. What do they have to pick up on the way home? Who do they have to call? Those are the important things. I don't even rate a mention in their life. So it's almost conceit. When you get over this conceited view that people that you matter that much to people, your mistakes matter that much, they're going to be talking about it, it's liberating. And when I understood that, it was like I'd been walking around with pretty much most of my life with my hands shackled behind my back in handcuffs. And when I realized that, was like the handcuffs were taken off. And this whole presentation thing, whether you're doing it on a call to someone, a Vmail, if you stop worrying about what people are thinking about you, because the truth is they're not really thinking about you at all. So that's what I learned.
Yeah, they're excellent points, Julian. There's a quote that one of my favorite quotes comes from a woman by the name of Kim Gordon, and she was the bass player for a band in the 90s called Sonic Youth, but she's also an art critic. And in one of her art reviews in New York, she wrote that people will pay good money to see others believe in themselves. And I firmly believe this. If you express open and honestly something that you believe and you say it confidently, you can take people anywhere. They'll follow you. And as you said, if you hesitate or if you go, I'm not sure whether I should say this, then that's when you start to lose people. So talking authentically about something you believe in is really powerful. But that also being said, if you do make a mistake, like you said, I learned that doing poetry on stage, is that I'll often come off stage and I go, oh, that was terrible. I forgot a whole stanza of one of my poems or something like that. nobody noticed. Nobody in the audience knows that. And you're often a lot harder on yourself, and you pick up things that nobody else will see. And so I agree with that too. If you speak and you turn up openly or authentically, you say something that you've prepared, that you believe in, then you can take people to lots of different places, and they will go away satisfied, happy, and you'll have a great time. So I've had a similar experience with poetry.
So we used to call that in magic, why run when no one's chasing? Like a lot of the times you're concerned that people know what you're doing, and the fact is that they don't. So don't run because no one's chasing you. They're just waiting for you to do what you're going to do. Hey, look, there's a comment coming from Pere. Is it Pere Pamana? I'm sorry if I've got your name wrong there, but this is for you, Chris. He goes, my gosh, I'm an ex-military chef. What do I do to pivot? Slam ham poetry?
But definitely. If you have poetry inside you, something you want to share, then and go out and do it. I don't know how serious this question is, but there are a lot of avenues now to share poetry. It's something which has been really good. Poetry slam, for those who don't know, is a competitive form of poetry. You have to perform your own poem. Usually it's 2 or 3 minutes, and people selected at random from the audience judge your poem. They don't judge you, they judge your poem. And there are a lot of poetry slams out there in lots of different towns now, as well as open mics. So there are a lot more people going out and sharing poetry live now, and I encourage people to do it. I think being creative is an essentially human thing, and to do something where you can find your creativity is really good. And if you're no longer finding creativity as a chef in preparing food, then maybe find creativity in another form. And yes, slam and ham do rhyme together, so probably got some a really good start there.
And it is so. Talking about starting, it's where do you think people can get opportunities that if they do think they've got a message inside of them, what is a process or a path they can start? I mean, a suggestion that I can give right off the top of the bat is Toastmasters. I was in Toastmasters for 6 years. And again, it was the part of the process, that the journey that I knew I needed to be on. And there are many things, there's a lot of good things about Toastmasters, and I'll also say there's a lot of not bad things. There are things that you might find negative about Toastmasters. But I'll tell you one thing above all else. The greatest value of Toastmasters I found is that if you want to get good and used to being in front of people, I know nowhere else that offers you an audience on a regular basis. To be able to get used to speaking in front of people, you have to have people to speak in front of. And it's actually incredibly hard to find, a little easier with virtual now, but it's hard and time consuming to try to get an audience together. So that is one of the great benefits of Toastmasters. It has a ready-made audience there.
Yes, I would agree. I strongly encourage people who want to improve their public speaking skills and their ability to connect with others to go and check Toastmasters out. As you say, it has a certain structure and a format to it that doesn't work for everybody, but it is something that you can go to every month. There is an audience. You will have to speak in front of that audience, so you do get that practice. Other opportunities might be through different forms of open mics at different cafes and pubs and venues. You can even go up to an open mic that is very broadly a performance open mic and speak for 2 or 3 minutes. You can totally do that. You could do that as a form of poetry at a poetry open mic if you wanted to. And then there are things like TEDx events. Often they have a pitching type process where you can pitch an idea to get onto a TEDx stage, and that's might be a 3-minute talk. So you can prepare and practice and do that at a TEDx pitch. There's several different avenues you can go, and as Donna Morris has just suggested as well, if you join a community organisation like Rotary or even your footy club or some form of community organisation, you might be able to offer to speak at an event and have opportunities to speak that way as well.
So I've been speaking at Rotary events many years ago, but just recently, because COVID is here and none of, you can't go out on a stage. I want to stay match fit with speaking. So I've been speaking at Rotary in their webinar events for the last couple of months now. I think I'm up to about number 11 at the moment, and it's great. I just go in, do my half an hour, have a little bit of a chit chat and go. So regardless of the level that you're at, there's value there. But let's go back to somebody who's not thinking about wanting to actually get in front of people, but has to make a video, or they've got to do Zoom calls with teams. What can people be doing just to improve their presentation? One of the things that I think the reason I got onto talking about Toastmasters and that ability to get in front of people on a regular basis is because there is a physiology that we all go through where when you get nervous about speaking on stage, because it's built into our DNA, because as we roam the plains on the savannah as cavemen, and we walked in a little group of 10 or 15 people, you were safest if you were in the middle of the group. So we, getting towards the center was important. Now, a million years later or so, we don't have to worry about that, but we've transferred that into status, into making our way as high as possible on the ladder. And we fear anything that's going to damage that position. And there was also this fight or flight. And so if you were a caveman and something came at you, you had to decide, am I going to stay and fight or I'm going to run? But physiologically, in both these situations, your body has a response where the blood flow increases, your muscles tighten up, and that's where shaking legs comes from. And then what your body decides, what doesn't it need? So it starts shutting down systems. You don't need your digestive system, so it stops the blood flowing to that. That's butterflies in the tummy. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. And if you're not used to this, this is this feeling of overwhelm that, when I said that I was in the first magic show, that rush of blood to the head, this was all part of this physiology. It's quite normal. There is nothing wrong with you. We were designed to have this happen to us so we could survive as best we can. So the more you can put yourself in front of these situations, just so you can register these feelings and go, oh, okay, that's what's happening. And then at the end you go, do you know, nothing bad happened to me? And it's almost a conditioning. And the more you put yourself in front and the more you realize, well, actually, no one said anything bad about me. Nah, all those things that I had imagined in my head never happened. You end up getting over this, and then you're freer. So please understand that if you are concerned about this, this becomes a whole heap easier. Have you experienced this, Chris?
Yes, yeah, and often the people I work with, one of the most common things to overcome is that nervousness, that anxiety. For some people, I remind them that you're not going to die. And some have taken that on, and that's been a bit of a mantra for themselves. They have to remind themselves before they get in front of an audience to say, oh, you're not going to die, you're not going to die. Because you're right, that's our body's response. We respond as if we're going to die because we think that our tribe, our community is going to reject us and we'll be eaten by saber-toothed tigers, which is obviously not the case. So you have to get used to, just through practice and through thinking through and preparing yourself, that this is just one talk. It's not the be-all and end-all, and at the end of it, you will be better at speaking than you were at the start, and then you can go on to the next one. It is a progressive process of improvements and becoming more comfortable, and you have to expect that when you start, the first time is going to be a little uncomfortable, but you will be able to improve. And I've learned that myself. I've been very fortunate to be able to have a lot of opportunities to speak in front of an audience, but I still get nervous, particularly when I'm doing something new or doing something to a different audience or a larger audience than I've done before. There's still those nerves. There's still that natural feeling that, oh, I hope I don't stuff this up. And that's when you do some preparation, some deep breathing, remind yourself that people aren't going to notice if you make mistakes. People aren't thinking about you as much as you think they are. And you have done this before. You've prepared. Now you can go and share what you've got with the audience, take them on a journey, and then move on to the next opportunity.
It's interesting because those physiological feelings that we go through, which is, you actually can start to hyperventilate, your legs can start to shake, you can feel even though you got the adrenaline, you can feel very heavy and lethargic, and you've got sweating palms and you might have a sweating forehead. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because those same signs and symptoms, if you go to a gym and spend a lot of money and have this amazing workout, at the end, you pretty much are in that same state, but you're thinking in your head, oh, I'm going to be so much better for this experience that I've just been through. And yet, when in the same position, when we're faced with these feelings, when we're speaking, we think it's going to be the worst thing that ever happens to us. So there is a lot of value in putting yourself in these situations and going through and building the awareness around it. Oh, so well, where are we up to here, Chris? You got any other ideas?
Well, the one thing I was just going to say from what you said there is that feeling those nerves, feeling that energy is a positive thing in general, because you know that you care about the outcome, and if you take that energy and you calm your body, but turn that energy and turn it outwards towards your audience, then that can be a positive thing. You can use that energy to show that you believe in something, show your conviction in what you're talking about, to take people on a journey. So harnessing that energy is something that you get practiced at from fronting up and talking to people and presenting and sharing your ideas, which I think is a fantastic thing.
And talking about presenting and sharing those ideas on that journey to trying to find an audience and just trying to take these baby steps to improve, what's your thoughts on using your family? Because I'll tell you my thoughts. Don't ever. I've found that trying to ask my family for feedback, and I love my family dearly, and I respect their views and their intelligence, but they also are family, and they are closely connected with me. And their fears and concerns lower down are very understandable. Is that they don't want me going out and damaging their status that they have worked hard for, and just by association, this all happens in an unspoken way, but they are very cautious and will be overly critical of what you're doing, almost. And what they're actually trying to do is trying to get you to do a safe version, like, oh look, if you've got to go off and do this self-improvement stuff you're doing or whatever it is, yeah, you go and do it, but please make sure it doesn't affect me. So my recommendation is find somebody else. What do you think, Chris?
I don't know if I would say don't use your family, but I think that the more people that you can engage and get them to help you, the better. One overriding concern is if you can find people who are going to be similar to the audience you're going to be presenting to, then they're generally more useful to try out your talk in front of. So your family might be that case, but often it's not. So finding other people who are closer to the people you'll be speaking to can give you that more relevant feedback. I would say with your family, take it on a case-by-case basis. And obviously, you primarily have an emotional, familial connection with your family, not necessarily a professional work-related one. And as you've pointed out, it's a very different dynamic. So you won't always get useful feedback from them. Possibly you might get a useful practice. So practice standing up and making eye contact and engaging people with your content. That might be valuable. And then you can shape the way that you ask for them for feedback, or don't ask them for feedback at all. Or you could for example, you could say, is there one thing that was confusing for you? Or is there one thing I could do better? And what's the one thing that I did well? And maybe contain it in that sense.
So thanks, Donna, for this comment. So Donna and Jerry Morris run a speakers. It's like a boutique. I guess it's an agency. It's a new form of booking speakers out there. But Jerry and Donna are a great team together, and Donna's just saying that she finds herself curbing Jerry's enthusiasm just to protect him. But yeah, interesting. So there is this dynamic going on out there. Have you heard of the term the vanilla problem, Chris?
I don't think so, Julian.
Okay, so vanilla problem. I'm fairly new to this, and this is particularly relevant to any leaders or business owners out there who are thinking, well, yes, I need to get into, presenting on video, whether it's educational videos or social media videos or promotional videos. The vanilla problem is that when we all watch content on our small screens, like there's stuff that we really like. You go, oh, that's really good. That's really funny. And you watch this and you like all this stuff. And generally it's engaging, it's authentic, it's all these things. Yet when you come to present and you think I'm the face of my business or my company, you go vanilla. All of a sudden you go, well, no, I can't be engaging and exciting or whatever. I have to go very middle of the road and not say anything or present in a certain way. And what we all fail to realize is well, why would anybody else watch that? Because it's not the stuff that you watch. Got any thoughts on that?
Yes, I think definitely the presenting your business or yourself, something that demonstrates a bit of personality, allows people to see a little bit into yourself. So as we mentioned earlier on, that vulnerability, so demonstrating a little bit of vulnerability in terms of what you share can be really engaging. People want to know that. And like that quote, people will pay good money to see others believe in themselves. Well, people want to know why you are there. What's the passion, the interest behind what it is you do. Now, it may not be the first thing that you deliver, but if you can share some of that sort of spice with the content that you need to share, then it's going to be much more engaging. And I think one of the things we've had this year, one of the benefits, I think, of people working from home and doing a lot more work on video like this, and the work that you encourage people to do to just make videos and get them out there, is that you get to see a little bit into the people's lives. So the things that I have behind me have all meaning to me in my life. They all reflect my background, and similarly for you, you have a lot of colour in your background, a lot of things I would love to know more about. And I think that people showing their lounge rooms or their studies or being able to hold up their dog, all of those things, I think, bring us closer together so that we see people as humans, and then we want to actually know more about what it is they're talking about. So I'd strongly encourage people not to be vanilla. You don't have to be bells and whistles, but if you can show a little bit of yourself, then that makes it much more engaging.
So one of the masters of that, of letting people see in behind the scenes, and people do love to see behind the scenes, was Barack Obama. So during most of his presidency, he had a thing that was called like Weekly Wednesday or something like that. He let just a very low tech, and I'm pretty sure, and I think it was a smartphone crew who came in and were able to video just behind the scenes of what the president does. He let them in for half an hour on a Wednesday or something. And it was hugely popular. People love to see that, oh, okay, we get the job you do. We get that you need to present yourself in a certain way at times, but we also want to know that you're human, because that's important. We don't want to be run by a robot or a machine. So yeah, interesting. So hey, thank you very much. It's either it's Dean or Louise. I think it's Louise watching. Yeah, thanks, Louise. It's terrific. And Trish, thank you for that as well. Yeah, people do want you to be real. And there's somebody on LinkedIn. I'm sorry, they don't, if you're not signed in, your name doesn't come up. But they're talking about the different types of audience who critique, and friends and family and peers and strangers, then critics, and they all see you differently, and that's true. Um, I've just obviously got a few bad memories I haven't shaken from those early days of showing my family something.
Was that 4-year-old Julian doing magic tricks in front of his parents or something?
No, no. The thing was, I never really was as a young kid into it. I did it maybe when I was about 8 or 9 or 10, but of course, I never did it in front of anything. And this is something people might find interesting. About 99% of all magicians in the world never ever perform for anybody. They love learning the techniques and the magic, but they don't have the confidence. And which is why I was saying before, when I went online, when I was in the world of magic and I took it online, I created a YouTube channel, which, more by luck than anything, did really well, called Julian's Magician School. And it opened up a whole new range of people to me, because I had about 140,000 subscribers, still got them up there. And I actually reached out to them and said, tell me what you're struggling with and what you want. And they emailed me back 33,000 words. And in that, they said, listen, we know the tricks, but we don't know the glue, the bit that holds it together that you can make a show out of. And that's what I focused on in this channel that I had, was showing people how they could do simple tricks with little things they could find around the house, a piece of paper, or out at the shopping mall with a sugar packet or something like that. But every trick, I gave them a presentation, because that's what people struggled with. And I find this in this video world as well, is that people come through my training and they're all excited, and they have that absolute sincerity in them that they want to go to the next step, but they don't know what to say, and they don't know what to put in their video. So I'm actually reframing all my content at the moment and my training courses to create what I'm calling boost programs. There might be 2 days or 5 days, but we come together as a group and we make the videos as a group, because it's momentum. And once you've made your first 10 videos and you've spoken on them and you've put them out there and people haven't criticized you, and you look and you're not bleeding, all these things, and you go, and the penny drops and you go, I got it now. And you can't really know that until you've been through it. So I fully get that this whole, speaking and presenting in front of people can be very, very daunting, but it's all achievable. And I always use, this is me just hogging the comment. I told you, I get in front of people and I just like to go into tell mode. But, I do use myself as an example here, because I started my life as a stutterer. That was one of my earliest memories, of about 5 or 6 years old, going to Mrs. Fussell. I remember her name, Mrs. Fussell, my speech therapist. And I hated it. And I started in my youth, into my teens, into my 20s, and even into my 30s, until I just said, I don't want to go through my life like this. And it took me time, but my point is, it's achievable. This is all achievable, but you've got to take those first steps. And getting back to what we were talking about, the sniper analogy and working in a team and with someone who's going to give you perspectives, I would have got there a lot quicker if I had found maybe the right person to take that journey with. And that's doing things like what we're doing here, Chris. That's why I think it's really important that people can get to know us and some of our stories, and maybe, because I know you, help people on their speaking and their communication journeys too.
Yeah, thank you, Julian. I really welcome this opportunity, and I really enjoy hearing more about your background as well. I think that stories like that you just told, it just reminded me that I read recently that Joe Biden had a stutter when he was a kid as well, and he actually has been mentoring young people who have speech impediments and helping them work through and work with them the same way that he did. So I think that knowing that kind of background makes a person seem more real and more approachable as well. And it's taken me a while to become more comfortable with sharing parts of myself too. Poetry has helped a lot. I've only been performing my poetry for 10 years, a bit over 10 years. But my poems that I think are the best, the ones that I enjoy the most, are the ones that are the most revealing about myself and my background. And I get a real satisfaction out of sharing that with other people, and then people saying that meant a lot to them, or they had similar experiences, or I've connected with them in some way. I performed as part of the Sydney Writers Festival a while ago, and after I performed a poem, a man about my age came up to me, and he had his son. He seemed to be about 8 years old. He's holding his son's hand, and this man says to me that the poem that I had performed about riding billy carts when I was a kid had made him cry, and he really appreciated it. And I thought that was such wonderful feedback, and for that man to do it in front of his son and to reveal that vulnerability and that connection, that really meant a lot to me. So I have learnt to be able to share these things and be more vulnerable, because that's the way people connect with us, and they say, oh, you're a human being, and I really appreciate you sharing that with me, and now I'll share something with you. And that's what connects us and brings us all together. And I've appreciated doing this with you, Julian, too, to learn more about you and have more of this discussion. I've really welcomed the chance that we've had today.
Yeah, thank you. No, thank you. I've been really looking forward to this all week. We're going to come up to the top of the hour here now. So I just want to, there's one more thing that I've just been thinking about, what stops people getting on. And one of the things is this whole imposter syndrome, this idea that I've got nothing to say, that I'm no one special, that if I say it and I muck up, you might find out that I don't really know everything that, you think that I know. All these thoughts that are going on in your head. And there's this thing that we're now in this information age where there's nothing secret anymore. You just go onto Google and you type it in, you will find it. The information is out there. But what people really want is they want someone to help them implement that information, or share their experience that they've had with that information, so they don't have to make the same mistakes. So there's this idea that I've been developing. It's called 2 steps ahead. And because quite often we think, oh, well, no, it doesn't matter. You might be really good at word processing, using a Word document or something, and you got stuff and ideas to say about that, but you go, no, I can't say anything about that because I'm not a guru. I'm not a Word doc guru. How can I possibly say that? But the problem is the gurus are too far advanced, and you've lost touch of what the beginner's mindset needs. And I've been through this, because as I got advanced in the documentary work, I was actually pulled up by a few people who I was asked to go in and coach, and they said, what are you talking about? You've just, we don't want to know about this esoteric stuff you're thinking about. Just tell us about f-stops and filters, will you? There's a different mindset. So as much as you might get value from people who are gurus, you also get enormous value from people who are just 2 steps ahead of you. And there is there's people out there who are desperate for that knowledge. But then you think, oh yeah, okay, well, I'm just 2 steps ahead and they want my knowledge. But people don't like me, and they don't like the way I sound. Why wouldn't they go like someone else? Why? I'll tell you why, is because we all like different flavors of ice cream. There's not just one flavor of ice cream. And as much as someone who's probably tuned into this has gone, I cannot stand that Julian bloke. He just goes on and on and on, and they switch off. They don't like my flavor. They'll find a different flavor. Exactly the same with you. There's 7 billion people on the planet. You only need a wafer thin slice of that. Don't deny the people who you could be really helping out there. So I hope that unblocks a little bit of, maybe if there's that blockage in there. You got any thoughts on that, Chris?
I agree, and actually it's a really neat way of tying together some of the things we've been talking about. By showing a bit of yourself, by showing a bit of your colour, the particular thing that you bring to whatever it is you're talking about, by necessity, you might be excluding other people who can't connect with that background or don't find any interest in it. But you can't stay vanilla and try and please everybody or try and connect with everybody. And if you think that's what you are trying to do and that's preventing you, then that you need to get out of that mindset and think that, no, I have a particular unique experience which is going to connect with that person and that person and that person, and they want to hear it. And by sharing your own particular perspective where you've come to a particular problem or an area or a field, that is going to connect and resonate with people. So I agree with you, Julian. You really want to be able to share that, be aware that some people, it won't mean anything to them, but to a lot of people, because you have revealed that, they'll go, oh, wow, you're just like me. Or that's something I really want to know about, and you look like a person that I could learn from. That's something that I have definitely learned from speaking, from doing my poetry, performing poetry, and from the work that I do now, is that you can't be something to everybody, but you need to be yourself. And there will be some people who really do want to hear from yourself.
Yeah, and Stephen Johnson, thank you very much for the most positive comment of the day. Yes, exclamation mark. Not sure what is yes to, but I'm going to ride your enthusiasm there. And just one more thing on that, Chris, just to follow on what you were saying. I actually find that we're really hypocritical and we don't realize it because we worry that people are going to criticize us who don't know us. We think, well, they don't know me. What right have they got to criticize me? Yet we go to the cinema, well, back in the days when we used to go to the cinema, we go to the cinema and we look at all the movie panels up there of who's on, and it might be a movie with Tom Cruise, and you go, I never watch a movie with Tom Cruise. Now, honestly, I don't know Tom Cruise. I say that actually a lot. I don't know him. It's not really fair to him, is it, that we make these judgments based upon that? So, look, it cuts both ways.
Yeah.
Hey, Donna, thanks very much. Most enjoyable, chaps. Thank you so much for all you've shared. This is good. And that sounds like a wind-up. That sounds like Donna is the stage manager on the side of the stage. Go, wind it up. Thank you, Donna. We needed this. So, Chris, thank you so much for coming along. And anyone you can find, Chris, where do people find you?
I'm very, very open to be connected with on LinkedIn. So Chris Huet, and Huet is the last spelling of my last name. I have a company called Understood. So understood.net.au also tells you what the work that I do. So yeah, thank you. I've had a fantastic time, Julian. So I really appreciated having this opportunity, and thank you for letting me connect with a lot of other people as well.
Terrific. All right, Chris, I'm going to wind this up now, and thank you, everybody. Thank you for your comments. If you have any ideas, maybe we can get a chat going with somebody else. Let me know, and we'll keep this going. Fail quickly, fail quietly, rinse and repeat. That's my motto. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Yvonne. Thanks for that. See you, Trish. Bye.